Shirley here with Sirius Taurus Moon, and this is Mercury hour Venus day. I have a message continuing on my previous message. Lilith is in the mid-decan of Scorpio. The moon is opposing Lilith from Taurus, 13 degrees Taurus, and mid-heaven in Libra, next to Vendia Matrix. So there is a collective exposure. I talked about the age of air towards 2030. 2030 is going to be, the eclipses in 2030 are going to be my nodal reversal. Some of the eclipses are going to be on my nodal reversal, the exact degree. Mercury on my midheaven, Jupiter with my Ketu, Venus with my Uranus. So I'm probably the go-to person about 2030. One thing for sure is that when people want one world religion, people have their own identities, and it's actually, particularly with Neptune, we're going to see that the practices that are done to take away of somebody's identity and creative power, they breed in more of that identity. Okay, it was actually what is happening is that the expiration time for cult-like practices is over. This is why we had the guillotine. This is why we had the attempts at the witch trial. And yet, if those, a lot of these attempts were, how should I say that? Both women and men have to ask themselves, is their practice supportive of sovereignty? And if their practice is trafficking people, okay, because let's say, and let's put it that way, to conjoin the two messages. The practices that were done to get people trafficked, to try, and it's not about getting them trafficked, you must understand that. It's about trying to gain control over their own life, energy, essence of creation, so that somebody else would do with their talents, with their skills, things that are not for them to do. This is why there is such a connection between, let's say, sexual harassment and plagiat. I was in academia, and the Me Too in academia had so much plagiat involved. So much plagiat involved. And I'm not talking about situations, for example, when I wrote my satire, there are things that somebody, I had a joke with my friend, and then my friend said, don't write my name. That's not plagiat. That's where they don't want their name on that particular joke. Okay, or they contributed to a joke, contributed to something. Or let's say this person lives in Israel and is Jewish and talks about the Druids and the fact that Jerusalem was everywhere. Okay, do you want your name being published in a peer review article? Okay, that's not what, but there are issues where there were genuine plagiats of people that did want their name on that. And actually the Me Too was women, in the beginning women, but then also men, and they were saying, this is my face, this is my name, it happened to me, this is the face, this is the name of the person that did that. Now this is incomplete, because without understanding handlers and mind control, you don't have the person, you have one of the people. That person have other personalities that work through them. This is why we don't have the Epstein list. Another classic example is, and for me as a relational astrologer, this was a surprise, because Uranus also deals with astrology of divorces and non-monogamy. Okay, those unusual couples. And for many people that are living in strict society that are expected to be monogamous, then that is considered a terrible thing. Or it comes to expression as affairs, not as something that is metamorphs and so on and so forth. So I would look to these issues and say, just like Esther Perel would look at that from her own perspective, erotic intelligence, I look at it from Uranus. What other creative things happened in those relationships? Okay, and then I was also, when Uranus was on Beta per se, I was also called in to refresh my own perspective, not in the sense that it's not true, but in the sense that, have you figured that human trafficking, child trafficking, the Masonic orders, and the seven is a sexual block that people constantly try to liberate, and it will constantly have affairs with one another, and then constantly say, oh, you have sex with the men, this is wrong, although you have to rape men, men have to rape men in the orders, okay? It's that is, it is so. They can't talk about it because then they get, the decoration on their neck, if they survive that. And so for women, oh my God, she cheated. What about your husband? She cheated. Who is she? Now, do you want to know that your husband tried to traffic her and did lust magic on her, and that she was ritually abused since childhood, so she never got to have safe connection, and so she thought she had an astral something, then she see what this person married, how do I get out of this situation? Do you really want, are you ready to know that? Are you ready to know? Okay? And so this is the reality of a lot of women out there. Oh, and what does the she thinks about? Oh, this woman is with him on the Epstein thingy. She's a part of the diddler. But sometimes it's true. I mean, who knows, right? And and this is exactly the things that come up when our world, okay, for anything is funded, including the science, by human trafficking and child trafficking. That's where the money is laundered. That's where everything is. So Saturn Neptune is a certain expiration date. It means that a lot of these things are going to be practiced and exposed to such an extent. First of all, there's a lot of magic to separate people. What happens when happily... Now, as a relational astrologer, it's always going to be something with the sex, right? Now, either somebody has a Madonna whore symptom, and means he cannot have sex not with the whore, not with the Madonna, because he has this split hatred that was the result of satanic abuse. Because he was raped and he was called a whore. That's why. And that is exactly what started that. He doesn't want to be a whore, yet he wants to unite with the part of himself that was raped and was made to be a whore. And then they look at women and say, oh, they reclaim this, they call them sluts, they reclaim, they call them this, they reclaim. Okay, but the reclamation is, for some people that works, and for some people they need to go beyond that. They actually reconnect with their own sensual self. And all the practices that were done ritualistically, hiddenly, this is also why they say for the Me Too, what did it get? It didn't get too much, of course, because you didn't talk about the ritual abuse. People began to talk about ritual abuse. People like Teal Swan began to talk about it in the 90s, and it's a satanic panic. And then there are the mass shootings, and then there is 9/11, and then there is this, and then there is that, and then there is COVID, and then there is Pfizer. Pfizer was an astrologer. And then there is no astrological community, because everybody Nazi. And you say, Shirley, does that include you? And they're like, can't you see how, let's just say, if I'm the Gadel point in here, the way that I struggle shows me how difficult it is to be me, shows me that I'm the Gadel point in here. This is why if you ran into my channel, you're like, well, there was Spirit of Matter, then there was Rockefeller Astrolink, whatever that name's supposed to mean in Beachview, then it was Jupiter Point of Talis, and that seemed quite good, and now there is Sheila Youngblood, and what's going on? Why all these channels? Why can't you see? Why doesn't it show in the algorithm? Can't you see? What does it tell about this, about that? Everybody struggles. Everybody struggles. This person became a parent. That person became a parent. You know what? So, um, so yeah, that is challenging as it is. It is, it is what it is. But those practices are going to be dramatically exposed because people are going to be separated, divorce or want to divorce. Then they deal with the reality of singlehood. Okay, for example, I was living 10 years with a friend, not even lavender, just a friend. Okay, and then they did all the weird rituals, separated. We needed to separated. Then I see with the reality of women living alone in the private sector. Okay, I was exposed to that because I was exposed, there was a separation, and then I was exposed. I never had bad thoughts about people that are being trafficked or so on and so forth. I said, no, it's not something in the sexuality, it's not. It doesn't yield, it's giving candida. But it's also true that in marriage is also the same. So for the married people that held on to their respect and honor and this and that and so on and so forth, um, I think some women had a word for it, but I don't know the American word for it. Um, and for those women, they deal with the reality of divorce, wanting to divorce, thinking to divorce, or what will happen. They're afraid to be trafficked. Some people are trafficked within the marriage. Then there is the forced marriage. And then people that are single, like single people unite. Okay? And so singles start to intertwine. Um, so, but this is for the people that are exposed to this reality. They're like, whoa, duh. But then they're beginning to be exposed to all the rituals that were done around these topics. It's kind of like when all the men died after the Second World War, women got the right to vote because now it mattered. They run businesses, they were traded, they were part of the economy, a very active part of the economy, and they were tending to the things that men did because they weren't meant to tend to that. So when the elections came, they were like, hey, this and that is related. Now it's the same, but with religion, with spirituality, with occultism. Hey, that thing that you do there with that right, that is basically a personality cult, and then you don't allow for the individual sovereignty. That's why your wife talks about sovereignty all the time, because because she's trying to be sovereign. Okay. And so we have an expiration date. There is, and again, Saturn simply means the implications of something. Okay, people say this karma. No, it's just the implications of something. You did something, then it causes a certain trajectory, and that trajectory begins to unfold. And this is where people say, for no, I don't want for to be in a situation where the I am is not respected. And if you put me through the helplessness, that what would I say? I would, from the helplessness, say, may this person die already, may this person die already. What you want to kill is not the person, but the practice. But they do all these rituals, so like they go to all these hidden paths to try to take away a person's sovereignty. You say, oh, let them die already, let this practice die already, let it die already, let it die. Then there is a flood, and then there is a this, and then with the people, what they did is actually they caused their own death by trying to get at the life of another. And no matter how much they try to reverse that, And if they do these rites that said, I am this, and I am also this, and so I can move this that I'm not. That this that you just move has a sovereignty. Sovereignty, Mars, friction, anger, rage, volcanic rage. You want to put helplessness to the mix? And then when the sovereignty begins to pop, then a person wants to become omnipotent because their helplessness that they have been through helplessness to ritual satanic abuse is being triggered. They call it megalomania. It's not megalomania. They went through intense ritual abuse. And so from their helplessness, the only thing that they found is to control everything around them. And then and the more that they do that, the more that everything around them begins to pop. Hey, there is an I am here. You violated that. Now what happens? They were ritually abused as infants, so they don't access the thing that the place in that infant that had the A, no. And then they run into all these kind of people say, hey, no, I do not consent. And I try to twist and trick that around, and like the more they try to twist and trick that around, they create the intense emotions that basically they had as infants, but it's something that one adult cannot experience. So this is how we create a cult, by the way. But many other people begins to experience that hatred towards the cult leader because they want their own sovereignty, their own I am. And this is what this Saturn Neptune is about. Empires do fall and dissolve when that happens.